Hello, and welcome to this episode of Start Somewhere, the Future of Luxury. I'm delighted to introduce my guest, the very amazing Stephen Webster. How are you, Stephen?
I'm very good, thank you, Sarah. Yes.
It's been a while.
It has been a while, yeah, but it went like that.
We always start this podcast by asking, how did you start somewhere? So tell us a little bit about your background, where you grew up, what you wanted to do in life.
Well, I was born in Gravesend, which is not so far from London, and I found myself at art school to pursue fashion actually, but I didn't really gel with fashion, but I discovered jewellery at that art school, and I've stuck with that. So it's 49 years I've been a jeweller.
Oh my
So
goodness.
I found something that just really inspired me and continues to do so.
And was there a moment that you found your passion for jewelry and found your purpose was jewelry?
Well, I think literally on walking into a workshop in an art school and seeing what looked like people making treasure. And
Love
they were making treasure, and I've continued to make treasure ever since. So I've been very fortunate that jewelry was my foundation and gave me a skill that I've been able to take all over the world
Yeah,
with me.
yeah,
So
an
yeah.
exceptional skill, truly. And tell us, like how you're living your purpose now with Steve, Stephen Webster, the brand.
Um, well, we've had many changes. I think you can't go through a sort of 49-year span without some changes. But I think we've sort of found that we we do what we do best by making, I think, very unique things for people for their lives because jewelry is something that you mark occasions with, whether it's that sort of often the first purchase that someone makes of significance in jewelry can be a commitment to someone, like an engagement ring, wedding rings, etc., which we do and I love to do because I generally meet those people, often get invited to their weddings,
Oh, that's lovely.
but anyway, I go to some, and all things that just mark, like I said, anniversaries, birthdays, gifting, and so it's very fundamental to what jewelry is, and I've found that over the years where we've sort of made collections and we put it out there for shops to sell what we make as a collection, I've kind of stopped all that. I ran out of steam with it. And so now it's much more about the individual and dealing literally with the person who for whatever reason needs some jewelry in their life.
That's lovely. And in a sense, it's more sustainable also because you're actually designing a piece almost with and for a person. Yeah. Rather than designing whole collections.
I think jewelry is very unique in a sustainable context because the materials you use are of such value that they're never disposable. So it's if you we all know about fast fashion, well, there isn't fast jewelry.
No.
It stays around for a long time, and in fact, my daughter, who's now a jeweler herself, um, specializes in using what you have already.
That's
She
so
doesn't
cool.
want to carry stock. She doesn't want to have collections. Where I did all of that.
Yes.
And she's like, whatever you've got, I can work with.
That's so cool.
And what's amazing is what people have
Yes.
that they sometimes don't even think about, and then they,
Yeah.
oh my word, yeah, I've got this drawer, cupboard, trinket box, whatever it is, full of things. And sometimes they're things from past generations, past their own purpose. It could be something that's broken, but you can fix it
Amazing.
and you can sort of melt it down and start again. There's not that much that we have that you could do that with.
No, that's absolutely true. So, Stephen, what is true luxury for you? What does that mean to you?
Well, it's got to be something special. I know it sounds very simplistic, but maybe that is simplistic.
Yeah.
It's not about price. It's not about something being unattainable. I mean, it can be, but I don't know if that's what luxury is. I mean, a lot of people, especially when you get to, my age, um, you think about the luxury of time. So you say, well, okay, that's a luxury because we all love more time, and so that's special. And so, but in the context of what I do, I think it's things that are, unique. They have a purpose. They're not just another thing that you can get because you can. Um, so it's something that means something to an individual.
Yeah, and I love that idea of passing jewelry from generation to generation as well. I mean, it really is like durable in a wonderful way. So tell us also, what do you think are the challenges facing the luxury sector at the moment?
Well, okay, so the luxury sector is broad, and I think there's lots of questions that get asked about what does that mean? Is something that's just very very expensive necessarily a luxury? It is in a context, but I think for me, you know, um, craft skills are a challenge because where I learned, the art school I went to, where I had the opportunity to discover
Yes.
that there was a thing called jewelry, they don't really exist anymore.
How sad.
It's in fact the art school I went to closed last year, and
Oh
my
no.
my brother's daughter was one of the last students, and she
Wow.
said, "Uncle Steve, your name's on the wall."
Yeah.
But Sandra Rhodes went to my art school, Tracy Emin, and I think
Amazing.
it was local. It was local. It was a local facility where you could go and discover that you might be good at something if you weren't necessarily academically strong, and that's what happened to me. And to take that away means that you're not feeding into what we all need in our sectors that require craft skills. And that's really sad. And I'm sort of trying to do something about it actually,
Very cool.
with the sort of reintroducing this possibility to schools that have a mind to an enthusiasm, if you like,
That's
to want to
wonderful.
embrace something like that because it's not on a curriculum.
It's really
So
sad.
that's a big challenge. And many years ago we started to sort of look at, I say we, I mean, the world started to look at places where you could make things cheaper and maybe in a bigger capacity, than we could locally. And maybe that was the start of a demise, but I think it's a bit of a bigger picture than that. But just the idea of somebody who's let's say 16, which I was when I went to art school, discovering you were good at something is a
Totally.
phenomenal.
It's
It's
extraordinary,
phenomenal
isn't it?
to watch actually,
Yeah.
and to think that that's really been eliminated is it's not just sad; it's a disgrace actually.
Yes.
But I think reintroducing that in a small capacity, which I'm doing with some other jewelers
Yeah,
actually,
that's
Theo
amazing.
Fennell and Solange Asgari Partridge, is very fulfilling for us, and we're filling a need. You
Yes.
need craftspeople, otherwise
You
we
do.
can't exist.
Yes.
So yeah, that's a challenge.
Yeah, I mean, it's really shocking and tragic, the way that those skills are being, left and cast aside. Absolutely. So, I mean, for you, I mean, when your customers are buying pieces of jewelry, does sustainability factor into their decisions? So, I mean, is that something they're interested in? Is that like a key, purchasing decision?
Um, Sustainability it's very important to me, and I mean maybe 14 years ago, I wanted to sort of know more about where my materials came from because I'm working in the things that we consider to be the most valuable materials. Gold and platinum and diamonds and rubies. And I think I sort of, through some questions that were starting to be bounded around, I realized I didn't know, really where the source of my material. So I took myself off to Peru and I went to some gold mines and I saw things that I probably didn't want to be aware of. But it made me very conscious of you know, it was for gold. It was for gold mining. It was sort of artisanal gold mining, and artisanal gold mining it sounds lovely, right?
It sounds
Artisanal
like
gold mining,
idyllic even.
yeah, but it's really not because there was a lot of terrible heavy metals being used in the processing of the extraction of the gold because that's the cheapest way to extract the gold, and obviously that's what happens. It's the cheapest way to do it. It's in a country where you've got a lot of poverty,
Yes,
and gold feels like it's an opportunity. It's gold
of
rush,
course.
and then when you get there, you think, oh my god, this is terrible, and so I started to look at that first. It was gold first, and then through sort of like I suppose some facilities that were becoming available, if you like, in the sector of luxury. But it was very early days. It doesn't even sound that long ago, 14 years, but it felt like it was
This is the
every
dark
single
ages
thing
of
you did,
sustainability.
you
Yeah.
had to be a pioneer.
Yes,
So when I,
absolutely.
when I came back from this trip in Peru, I remember the Guardian did a big article on it because it was very unusual for a jeweler to go down a mine, and come back and sort of share what I'd seen. So that was then, and now I think we've sort of tried to look at everything we do with the same view, about sustainability, because without that, you haven't got a future. Even in your business, it doesn't have a future. And and then going on to your question about the client, I'd say more and more, it's a question. It's definitely not something that everybody comes in and wants to know about the sustainability of what they're buying. People do. And so I sort of make sure that my staff who are customer facing have got the answers, that we're aware of what we do, how we do it, where the materials come from,
Yep.
and and that satisfies most questions. People don't want to dig unless they're looking for some other reason. But if it's just the purchase, I think people just want to be comfortable that what they're buying has been thought about. And
Well, yeah, I mean, especially as jewelry is often given as a symbol of love, so you don't want to then discover that somebody has really suffered, in the making of
no,
it, right?
absolutely, yes, that's true.
Yeah. So we've talked about how you're embedding sustainability and purpose in the company. I mean, what do you think? I mean, jewelry is kind of ahead in many ways of the rest of the luxury sector because the materials are expensive and a lot of questions have been asked about where they come from. But what do you think is the major challenge facing the luxury sector in general at the moment?
Well, I mentioned about skills. I think that's a big one. I think things that impact my business are out of my control a lot of the time. Like gold
Yes.
is something that people turn to when there's a instability in other
Yes.
sort of parts of
Oh,
the
yeah.
world.
I mean, especially at the
Yeah,
moment, right?
and so I I was sort of I was with someone who got nothing to do with anything that I do, and we were talking about investments, and I said, "Oh, you should look at gold." And he sort of went straight onto his phone. He went, "Wow," because the price has gone like this, And if you're looking at it from an investment point of view, which really is what sets the price for gold, not jewelry. It doesn't matter how much we use. It's a little sort of dent in the purpose of something like gold. Um, it's people have turned to it, and so that I have to keep increasing my prices. And literally, I mean, every single time I make something, I have to check, what's the
Right.
cost of my material, which is quite unusual. If you're working in fabrics or whatever, you probably do it once a year. You probably look at something. I've got to almost look daily,
Oh my
at,
goodness.
at the price of my materials, and essentially it's mainly gold, but that also silver, and other precious materials. So I say it's a challenge. It's just what you got to do. You otherwise you'd be selling it less than you're buying it for.
Yeah.
But that makes me look at what we do always with an eye to not wasting any of our material.
Yes.
You never did in jewelry. It,
Yeah.
it didn't matter if gold was down here or up
Yes.
here. You work
Everything.
in a place where you retain all your filings. When you wash your hands, there's filters on everything. But I think now it's more important than ever that I'm looking at a piece and thinking, is there a way that I can retain um, everything that I need to put into a piece, of what I make, but also can I use less material and still make it fabulous?
Yes, I mean, it's very different from fashion, where, I mean, although they're trying to cut patterns differently, there's still quite a lot of excess fabric and whatnot. But, you're actually using absolutely everything, which is extraordinary.
Yeah, and also I'm working with a lot of technology
Yeah.
that I would say didn't really exist in my industry
Yes.
until relatively recently. Let's say in the last 20 years. It was all hand
Yeah.
tools and
Yes.
and everything, and it still is. But now, because technology moves very
Yeah.
rapidly, you can use that to an advantage, um, with the use of your material by applying technology to it
Yeah.
to make something that you probably would have found difficult to have done in the same capacity, just sort of by eye.
Yes. Extraordinary. I mean, you're like a miniaturist, really. You,
Miniaturist.
you know.
Yeah, well, I'm a
Yeah.
maximalist, minimalist, miniaturist.
Yeah, but in terms of like the extraordinary
Yeah.
detail that you're working with. And actually, I just wanted to ask, one question which I think is relevant is, diamonds, lab diamonds versus, natural diamonds. Do you have any kind of strong thoughts on the matter?
Yeah. In fact, it's very interesting that the last couple of days, it's come up for me as much as it ever has. And it's partly because when the idea of a lab grown diamond was introduced to us all, I think there's lots of things happening. It's fake diamond. No, it's not fake diamond. It's this, it's this, whatever. It's more sustainable, and there is an element of it that you might say, well, compared to mining, it's more sustainable, without a doubt. But there's also quite a lot of opaqueness about the processes, and it could be the same as Bitcoins. You've got something that I don't know if that many of us know actually what a Bitcoin is, but the mining of a Bitcoin takes a huge amount of energy,
Well,
that
yes.
no one really wants to talk about much. And but that can be the same as a lot of AI. It's not
Very energy intensive.
what it looks like on the packet, if you like. And so I think lab diamonds I find it phenomenal that it's like alchemy.
Yes,
That
it
you
really
can
is.
make something that essentially would be 50 million years old in a laboratory in a month.
It's extraordinary.
Um, so that's worth looking at. And so I did, and I went and I looked at labs, and I was very enthused by it because I thought technology is such that we will be making diamonds that maybe won't be like the diamonds that come out of the ground, meaning mimicking what we do with that.
Yes.
So we dig up a diamond as a crystal structure, and over the centuries, we've cut this crystal to maximize its brilliance and desirability. I thought, well, maybe we can do something different. I didn't know what, but
Yes.
something different using this new technology. But what's happened is it hasn't. It's just absolutely mimicked exactly the same.
It has, isn't
So
it?
so
Yes.
then it confuses people.
Yes.
And so now I'm not a big fan of it because there's no limit. Once someone says, "Well, how much is a lab?" And let's say a lab is, let's say, the size of a fridge, freezer. It's not like a room. It's a bit of equipment,
Wow.
and it costs a lot of money. It's maybe a few million quid.
Good Lord.
But if you've got the wherewithal
Hmm.
to keep buying labs, you just keep buying labs, and they never stop. So
Gosh.
they're robots,
So it's like mass
and
production.
and so it is 100% a mass produced product, and this is where someone will find fault with everything I say, but I look at that now and I think, okay, where does that fit now in the luxury sector? It's limitless supply, and it will just keep on oversupplying. Something that I'm not interested in what I do. I like things that aren't limitless in the supply. So you go back to mining and diamonds, and then you've got to look at the mine, where the mine is, the community around the mine, what that means to that community, and you've got to look for positives. And there are some positives as there are negatives. But I can't deny the fact that what I do as a jeweler requires me to work with diamonds. So therefore, I've got to look for the best way that I can bring that to my client.
Yeah, and I think what was always interesting for me when I was working for Forevermark was that there was this real acknowledgement of climate change, that there were also extraordinary diamonds in Canada and under the tundra in Russia, which were almost impossible to get out. And, with the thaw, if you like, that we're experiencing, those mines, are becoming more accessible. And it's this very interesting sort of interrelationship between natural diamonds and climate change, which is scary at the same time.
Yeah, it is scary, but like I say, that's happening. Um, and yeah, for the reasons you just said, in places that were maybe, it's not about them being inaccessible. It makes it's not practical. If your costs are so high, you don't go there.
Yeah.
And that can be anything, shale gas, in the same places. And, oil and etc. But I think, as long as I know where my diamonds come from, and I've not gone to the place that I just said, well, it's a bit, I'll keep a bit quiet about this because, they're a bit cheaper. I'd rather pay more. And Canadian diamonds actually are a good example of that. As a product, they tend to be a higher priced um, product because, from the supply chain all the way down, people are paid properly. The equipment is such that it's got the least amount of impact. I mean, these are sort of things that go on in whatever you're bringing out of the ground, and so you can choose to pursue that as your supply chain, and or not actually. But I try to do that.
So, Stephen, what do you think other luxury companies can really do to improve their chances of having a sustained future?
Well, I think it's too difficult for me to sort of say in one summarize what they can do. I think there's been more attention paid to the things that I've spoken about. Your supply chain.
Yeah, and you speak a lot on this
I do,
subject
and
to the
I've
BBC.
sort of feel that with some. authority on my where I fit in this, luxury sector. But I think um, just looking at that, number one, I think being able to be honest with your client about what it is that they're paying for, and and some of those things, I think I'm sort of glad in a way that I'm not in an industry that can't do that, because if you expose too much, people might find out too much. Whether that would change, you know, a consumer's need for a handbag. I'll just say that because handbags are
An
one of
interesting
the
topic
ones.
at the moment.
I don't know. I mean, it's all to do with that, really, isn't it? It's to say, well, it doesn't matter what we do and say, and the craft skills we apply, whatever, to this handbag, it's still so desirable that we can't make enough, which is a fact. So, who am I to say? I don't know. I mean, I do know that, where I sit, um, we try to share as much as we can with what we do. Just bringing someone into a workshop is normally a phenomenal experience for someone.
Extraordinary. Yeah.
I mean, I do it all the time because they just see people making things, and that's already special.
Yes, it really is.
That it's not come out of some process that's mechanical. There's elements in there. Like I said, we have a laser machine,
Yes.
and got two actually. But that all that does is just help you in your process with your hands. Um, so I think those things. I'm lucky that where we sit, we can share all that, and I think it's part of luxury
I
that you
think it
can.
is that craftsmanship, and I feel it's a really strong point. Skill, craftsmanship, um, great materials, transparency are absolutely key to the luxury industry as a whole going forward. So, Stephen, you're a very busy man. I mean, you travel a lot. You're dressing celebrities. Um, how do you stay kind of optimistic and resilient?
I'm an optimistic kind of a person. Um, I think, we had, I mean, I can share it with you because why not? I think 3 years ago when the Russian war started, I nearly lost my business
Yeah.
because
Gosh,
I'd spent 22 years building a business. My wife's Russian, as you know,
lovely essay.
in a part of the world that was ripe for luxury, and it was an incredible time building a business, in a place where I got family, and it was really exciting, and it took me all over that huge area, from the Ural Mountains to the Ukraine,
Wow.
everywhere, and it was really fun, and they seemed to love what I did. A lot of things made it a sort of a special place for us, and then that ended, literally ended.
Overnight, literally.
We were there in Moscow. My daughter was living there. She was teaching English to Russian kids, and she loved it, and we loved it. And then the war started, sorry, we were there opening a new boutique
Oh my goodness.
that we'd spent nearly all of COVID time kind of
Oh my
building,
goodness.
and it was fabulous. And so we went. We had no idea actually what that meant, but that was beginning of the end, and it was probably half of my business,
Oh my
and
goodness.
so I sort of you come back, and I spent the next almost 2 years, like a year and a half, trying to compensate for literally losing all
Wow.
that overnight, and so I had to look at my business, and I had to sort of consolidate it, and which was really tough because I had 33 people working for me that I couldn't keep because I didn't have. I tried really hard to
Bless
keep them
you.
as long as I could,
Yeah.
and so I had to let um, about 20 people go, which is really difficult. In
And they
no
were
matter
like your
what happened,
family, right?
they really were because there wasn't one of them that
Yes.
I wanted to let go,
Yes.
but we were able to stick with people until they found their next
Oh, that's
place.
amazing.
And now, 3 years later, I've bought at least three of them back, which is quite cool. But I think those things are a massive challenge.
I mean,
And
huge.
you look at it. I mean, I was very very stressed. I couldn't sleep. Honestly, it was really terrible. And also it came at a time. I'm 65 and I was like, I was 62 or whatever. And I'm thinking, I can't, it can't end this way.
Yes.
And so you got to rethink what you're doing. And I think that, that's what I had to do. And so, I've now got a team of about 18 people. Um, we're building back in a different way. I just opened a new shop in the Burlington Arcade, which is, the oldest shopping arcade in the world.
It was and beautiful.
I love being part of it. It's a real community
There's
and
something
it's
else.
great. I sort of open my windows
They
up.
have a great like cocktail party, which is
I've got
much sought
well, but
after.
the
Yeah.
next one will be ours. And I've got the shoe shine guy out there.
Oh, that's so lovely.
And so, that just feels like a new chapter. And it is a new chapter. I think I'd never really thought about it before, but when I started looking, for what was next, I just sort of happened to walk down there and there was a shop that was a pop-up. I didn't know it was a pop-up shop, but it was a pop-up James Bond shop. And
I love
and
it.
it was gold. And I thought,
Oh my
wow,
God.
this is cool. And some years ago, I'd made all the jewelry for a Bond film for
Yes, you did, didn't you?
Skyfall,
Yes.
and there was a woman in there that knew me, and I was like, "So, Stephen,
It
come and
was
have a martini."
fate.
Yeah, so I went in and I thought, wow, this is really cool. First of all, I had no idea that in that little arcade with the little shops, you kind of go into these TARDISes inside their
Because
townhouses.
they look tiny, yeah.
And so I went in, I saw they had a bar downstairs. It was the Goldfinger bar, and
I
everything
love
was
it.
gold. And I thought, wow,
The
this
sign,
could
if
this
ever
could
I
be
saw one, yeah.
this could be. I didn't think about that spot. I just thought about the arcade as something.
Mhm.
And as it was, I ended up taking that spot.
Amazing.
And they actually left me everything because they said, well, we don't need it anymore. And I said, okay, that's great. Yeah, but it was nearly all a stage set. It was like nearly everything was like falling apart. It had served its purpose.
Oh
So,
gosh.
but I did keep the gold toilet, and I've still got
God,
it.
I love it.
It's become a sort of a photo opportunity for Instagrammers.
For
The
people
gold,
on the
it's a
the
proper gold toilet. Yeah,
Like,
and it's almost the first place I take people to, whether they want to go to the toilet or not.
oh my goodness.
Doesn't matter. And they go, wow, it was literally the only thing that wasn't falling apart. But we're in that spot and I'm loving it. Yeah.
That's so cool. Stephen, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, it's always such a treat to speak to you, and I'm sure our audience will have really loved hearing from you. And a note to you: obviously, go and check out Stephen's new store, his gold toilet,
Yeah.
in the Burlington Arcade. Thank you very much, Stephen.
Thank you.